What's going on, everyone? So, again, this Sixers drama is an absolute mess. And I just think that this season is going to be a disaster for the Sixers. James Harden has made it abundantly clear that he wants out and he wants to be traded. Reports came in that Daryl Morey and the Sixers tried to give him his request and traded him to the Clippers, but they were never able to come to an actual trade conclusion, and thus they have pulled back, and they expect James Harden to be in for training camp. James Harden has said that he's not going to report for training camp, and he doesn't want to be a part of training camp. And then we get some big news today of some words that James Harden said. And I am going to play exactly what he said here in a moment. But this is one of those things where I don't see this ending well, and it needs to be finished before training camp. I really do. I think Daryl Morey, whatever happened, right, whether he really did lie and deceive James Harden, which very well could have been the case, or James Harden is being ridiculous and over the top, right? Because the original reports was that James Harden was upset that Daryl Morey didn't approach him about an extension leading into the first day of free agency, which they couldn't. And they got in trouble last year because of that. Literally, the Sixers got fined and lost a pick. And this isn't 27-year-old James Harden anymore, where it's like, hey, we would have traded 2 firsts for him anyway, right? Like, no, this is a James Harden that has had a steep drop-off in many ways, who hasn't delivered in the playoffs. And it's not like he's delivering and taking the Sixers to heights that they haven't been before, right? And so somewhere there was this disconnect, somewhere there was this misunderstanding, but at this point it is an absolute mess. And both sides just need to be done. Daryl Morey's got to unload James Harden. But we'll dive into that here in a second. Here's exactly what James Harden had to say about Daryl Morey.
Daryl Morey is a liar, and I will never be a part of an organization that he's a part of. Let me say it again. Daryl Morey is a liar, and I will never be a part of an organization that he's a part of.
So, there you have his exact words. He will never, ever play for a Daryl Morey-led team, right? Now, again, even Kyrie Irving's came out and said, is he being this negative person, or is he trying to hold Daryl Morey accountable? And maybe he is. Maybe he is trying to, hold Daryl Morey to his word. And maybe Daryl Morey ended up fumbling it, messed it up, and ruined this relationship. But it's also very possible that James Harden feels some type of way that isn't true. And why is this something? Because James Harden has done this in 2 other destinations. It's not like James Harden has been this model citizen his entire career and has been this guy that just rides through it no matter what and just ended up. No, he completely quit to the point where the media was asking, is he wearing a fat suit on the Houston Rockets? Then he forces his way and gets to the place that he wanted to go with the Brooklyn Nets. And he wants out because of Kyrie Irving, because the organization doesn't hold people accountable, and quits on the Nets. And then now he's going to Philly, where he wanted to go, and everything like that. And now he's on Philly, and now he's going to quit on Philly. Like, at some point, it's like, okay, it's not these. So all of these organizations have been the problem. It's not been you, right? It's not been the guy that likes to go and is known to fly to Vegas in the middle of playoff series, the night before games, and go gamble and go to strip clubs and go party and go do this. It's not the guy that comes in on a season and completely quits on his team and is overweight and out of shape and has just been on a binge the last, off season. Like, it's not that guy, right? It's got to be Daryl Morey, who just, by the original accounts and original reports, didn't want to put the Sixers in a position that could have hurt the franchise long term. And James Harden feels like Daryl Morey and the Sixers owe him. I understand that he took a discount. I understand that he just, he did things to help this Sixers team. But he also forced his way to the Sixers, right? The Sixers, it's not like they just got him for free on all these hopes and promises. Sixers gave up assets and did things, right? Like, there was two sides to this thing. And did Daryl Morey just flat out lie? Okay, well, what did he lie about? What did he lie? Did Daryl Morey say he was going to keep you long term and then you got to contract negotiations and he was like, nah, like, I'm just going to give, like, what is it? Because apparently it's a contract discrepancy, right? That James Harden thought he was getting long-term contract and they don't want to. We don't know, and we likely will never know what the ins and outs are. But here's what we do know. We know that James Harden just said publicly that he's never going to play for Daryl Morey. And now Daryl Morey is going to call his bluff when he has done exactly what he said? This isn't Kevin Durant or somebody like that where it's like he's going to play. Or like Damian Lillard, where it's like if Dame ends up going back to Portland, right, and he doesn't get traded, Dame's not going to say, okay, I'm not going to play this year. No, Damian Lillard's going to play. Damian Lillard is going to do his best and play to the highest level he can play for Portland and if he gets traded later on, he gets traded later on. James Harden's not that guy. James Harden is the guy that will sit out the entire season and will, or if he does play so he doesn't get fined, he'll do what he did with the Nets and what he did with Houston, where he might as well not even be on the court, where he's just standing around doing nothing, just collecting a paycheck. James Harden, we have seen actually quit on two different teams on two separate occasions. And here's the thing. Here's the problem. James Harden is good enough, and he knows that no team, that he's still always going to be secure. He's always going to get a contract, right? This isn't like a Christian Wood situation where Christian Wood is very talented, but his locker room issues and all the concerns and stuff like that, like he could be out the league, right? He still hasn't signed a contract. I think he will, but it's possible he doesn't, right? James Harden doesn't have to worry about that. Now, will James Harden ever be a $40 million a year guy again? Probably not. I would be pretty shocked if another organization gives him $50 million a year or $40 million a year or anything like that, outside of maybe Philadelphia, just to try to rectify this. But in reality, he'll still always be a $15 to $20 million guy, right? Like, there are teams that right now would take James Harden for $15, $20 million a year, or a mid-level exception or something like that, right? Because he's still good enough to where he would be more than that value. He's not the same player he once was, but he's still very talented, right? So he's not worried about like, oh, like I won't get a new contract elsewhere. But could he implode the Sixers this year? Absolutely. And the last thing you want is Joel Embiid now wanting out because he doesn't want to deal with this mess. You have Joel Embiid, even through all of this disaster right now, has still not requested a trade, right? And even through all the mess that the Sixers have put Joel Embiid through over the last, 7 years or whatever, right? He still hasn't requested a trade. But that doesn't mean he won't tomorrow. And your obligation is not to James Harden, because James Harden just threw you under the bus and just told you where he's at. Joel Embiid is the guy you're trying to salvage. If you have to trade James Harden for a bag of chips to the Clippers, do that. Because at least you can justify, hey man, do you really want to play with a guy that doesn't want to be here, that has quit on 2 other teams, that has been in a position? I know it's frustrating, but we got him off the thing. We got these pieces, because you're still going to get something, right? Like, trade him to the Clippers for, even if you have to get like Covington and a bunch of other random pieces that are expiring contracts, do that. Because at least those guys will play for you. At least those guys will show up. And at least you can keep Joel Embiid happy, because he doesn't have to deal with James Harden throwing a temper tantrum all season. And you guys end up missing the playoffs, or you lose in the first, second round. It's probably what's happening this year anyway. But at least now you have all this salary space, and you can kind of sell Joel Embiid on, hey, we got the salary cap space. We can go look at these guys. We can get this. Like, we can help you build the team that you want. And try to keep Joel Embiid happy. Because I just think what is going to happen is James Harden is going to quit, because we have no other evidence to show otherwise. The 2 other times he was unhappy, he completely quit on those teams. And we are expected to believe that he won't do that to the Sixers? I don't buy it. You are who you are. It's the saying, when someone shows you who they really are, believe them. Well, James Harden has showed us twice now who he really is. And we're supposed to believe something different? So he's going to quit on Philly. And you think that that's going to make Joel Embiid happy? At least if you go get guys, like I said, a bunch of random role guys or whatever, expiring contracts from the Clippers or some other team, at least those guys will play. And at least those guys will give you 100%. And it's not like James Harden is very likely leading you to a championship anyway. James Harden disappears completely in the playoffs. He's done it his whole career. And you're going to what? You're probably going to be a second round exit this year again anyway. So what's the difference if you go get some role guys and you end up in that same boat? Right? Like, at least you got guys that can keep Joel Embiid happy and at least will want to play. I think that they should just get rid of James Harden. This isn't a Damian Lillard situation where, Dame, he's going to be a professional. He's going to do what he's going to do. He's going to play to the highest level. So it's like, there's no need to trade him. James Harden, you need to trade him now. You do. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. How do you feel about the situation?